Welcome back to the Cat Knit Podcast. My name is Grace and today is Thursday, May 31st. Yes, I am recording on a different day, but life is busy and you do what you gotta do. This is a podcast about knitting and crafting and lots of fun things like books and cats and baking, but specifically knitting because that is what I love to do the most. I have a little bit of knitting to share with you guys this week, or more than a little bit. I think it's a good amount, but yes, this another busy week. Knitting is low, but that's okay because you know what, life happens and you just record your podcast and you move on, so it's all okay. Like always, if you'd like to follow me on any of my social medias, there's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Ravelry. I am most active on Instagram for sure, so if you'd like to follow me over there and see what I'm up to during the week, that would be wonderful. All of that will be linked down below if you are on my blog, or if you're on YouTube, it'll be linked everywhere, so do not worry. In addition to that, if you would like to see any of the links that I have found for the things that I will be talking about in this episode, you can find them in the show notes. If you are on YouTube, it'll be linked down below. They're on my blog, or if you're on my blog, obviously they'll be down below. So, is there anything else I need to say in the intro? I don't remember. So with that, because I have said everything I need to say, let's just go ahead and get into the episode. If you would like to grab something tasty to drink, because it is a different day, I have a different schedule, and so I just have my water because I'm filming at a different time and I'm drinking water, and that's super cool. So if you would like to get something tasty to drink, whether it be water or tea or something to snack upon or something to craft while we spend a little bit of time together and I tell you what I've been crafting, you can come back and join me for some crafty chat. So this week I have knitting to show you. I have a mini finished object, which I knit up last night, which is super exciting. But yes, so it might be a shorter episode. That's okay. You know what? Life happens. Like I said, I'm filming on a different day, but I have stuff planned for tomorrow, so I will not be able to film when I regularly film. But this episode should go up when it normally goes up on Saturday. So hopefully you should be watching this on Saturday or whenever you're watching it, but just know that I'm recording on a different day, which really doesn't matter all that much. But I just wanted to let you know that things are a little different, but that's okay. So, announcement over. In addition to knitting this week, I also have a book to talk about and a recipe to share with you. The recipe I loved, the book not so much, but that's okay. I want to talk about it, and so that is what we're gonna do. But let's start with knitting because obviously that's the most fun part, because this is a knitting podcast and that is what we do here. So, first off, my mom's popcorn bomber by a Nordic Knitting Tale. Yay! I am so close with being done. So close to being done with the, what am I saying? The ribbing, the bottom of the sweater. The body of the sweater. It's Thursday. What am I even talking about? So, I've made good progress. I have put a lot of work in. I finished the body. Did I finish the body last week? I don't remember if I had or not. I think I was gonna try it on. Maybe. I don't remember. Either way, I started the ribbing this week and I got most of it done. We had not seen, my husband and I had not seen Black Panther yet, so we rented it from Redbox, and because my husband wanted to watch it. And so we watched it, and that is when I got most of the work done on this thing, and I haven't really worked on it since, because busy. But I don't remember what day that was on. But I'm very close to being done, and obviously I have the sleeves to do, because the sleeves need to be taken care of. And then, everyone, we have the sticking progress. Project? Process. I think that's the word I'm looking for. So that is super exciting, and you know what? I have done a little bit of steeking research, and I am not nearly as scared of it as I was a week ago. So I'm actually very excited to try it. I am looking forward to making a sample steek so I can just try it out and see if it works or how it works, or just experiencing the steps of steeking and actually cutting something that I've knit. Because that just in itself, regardless of how safe you know the stitches are, that's still probably a very mind-rattling experience for those of us who are unexperienced in the steeking world. So I've looked at 2 steeking tutorials. One of them is a video, one of them is pictures with text. And I skimmed over the pictures and text one just because I had already watched the video, which was relatively long, and I felt comfortable in that information and I didn't need it right then, and so I just wanted, and also I was busy, so I needed to like skim it and all that jazz. So I will be going back to the reading one for sure, but I do remember that it was very useful, and I'm going to talk about them now. So the first one, the video one that I watched, was by the knitting expat, Mina Phillips. She has her own podcast, which is super wonderful. It is great. Her tutorial for steeking was so incredibly clear and very like easy to see what she was doing. It was very concise. It was not like all over the place. So it was a really good like tool, I guess you could say. It made me very confident in my ability to be able to do this, having never done it before. What was also really fun is that was the thing that she was steeking in the video that she filmed was also her first steeked item, which that is pretty incredible. I don't think that I would be like, I'm gonna film a tutorial on my first steek thing that I ever do. But more power to her. That is wonderful. Now she has put up something that people can benefit from, and that is absolutely wonderful, myself included. So I have benefited from it, because like I said, I just feel less overwhelmed and intimidated by steeking, the act of steeking, preparing for steeking, all that jazz. So I'm feeling really good about it. That will be linked in the show notes, so if you are also interested in steeking or learning how to steek, or you are just not going to be steeking but want to see what all the fuss is about, I will link that video in the show notes. But like I said, if you are going to be steeking in the future and if you've never done it, I highly, highly recommend watching her video. She said in her video that she got most of her information from the Tin Can Knits, which is the article that I scammed over. They have a very good tutorial, and then also Yisolda Teague has a steeking tutorial as well, which I did not have the time to look up, but I will be looking that up this coming week or whenever I get ready to steek, actually do the act of steeking. But both of those will also be linked in the show notes, so if you are interested in finding out more information or looking at other tutorials that are out there for your use, they will be there. So don't worry, it'll all be linked in the show notes. So that is very exciting. Hopefully my mom and I will be making little sample steeky things. I have a significant amount of scrap yarn and various yarns that are good for using for things like that, testing and all that jazz. But speaking of yarn, before we move on, the yarn, I forgot to mention the yarn that I'm using for the Mum's Popcorn Bomber. Both of them are from Drops. This is the Kid Silk, it's not Kid Silk Haze, it's just Kid Silk. That's Kid Silk Haze is a Rowan yarn, but this is Drops, so it's very nice, very fluffy. And then this is the Drops Nepal, if I remember correctly. So it's just a very nice, it's showing up more blue on camera. It's also focusing on my face, so there we go. This is a thumbnail for sure. It's showing up more blue on camera, but it is definitely more purple and like grapey, blueberry not blueberry, blackberry type color. So I love the combination of these two. I think it really, this really softens they're both purple, the main purple color. So, and I know it's very hard to see because every time I lift it up it gets blown out, but it just creates a very nice heathered effect, and I think it's really beautiful. Oh, there we go. We have the key is you have to lean back. You can kind of see it better. It just really makes the main color of the purple look more soft, and there's more dimension to it. And granted, I know that it is very hard to see the baubles on camera as well, but you can see them much better in person because they're actually like sticking out. So fun times. I think in addition to the steeking and like post knitting things that I need to do as well, I accidentally threw an extra bauble somewhere, so I have to make a bauble and put it in the matching place on the other side because it's kind of apparent. And again, I know you can't see it, but there are two baubles over here. There's only one bauble over here. So, and it's not like you can just cut a bauble off and just call it a day. Unfortunately, you can't do that. So I'm going to somehow make a form of a bauble and sew it on in the place where there is not a bauble. And this yarn has shed all over my leggings. Oh, the woes of a knitter. But yes, so this is Mom's Popcorn Bomber by Nordic Knitting Tale. I'm knitting it out of drops. Hopefully I will be able to finish the body this week. There's fluff everywhere. And it's in my nose, and my nose is itchy. Hopefully I'll finish the body this week. Start on the sleeves, get those sleeves done lickety-split. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then get the steeking progress done. So, or started. Because that is very exciting. So, and then there's the whole button band and picking out buttons and fun things are ahead. I am really looking forward to getting this sweater done because it has caused me a lot of stress and I really just want to finish it. Not that I need it because it's really hot, but I will be excited to get this thing done. Also because there's other things that I want to knit. Other things have come up. More knitting has been planned. Future knit-alongs with my mom. Last week I mentioned the No Frills sweater by Petite Knits. Or Knit, Petite Knit. The No Frills sweater. The one that is becoming super, super popular and everyone is making like multiples of them and it's just so inspiring and I want to make one so badly. But then there are other sweaters that I also really, really want to make really, really badly. So it's just a matter of picking which one gets to be knit first. And yes, so who knows? Who knows? And then there's also the other things that I have currently on the needles that need to be finished. So, but you can never have too much knitting, so just keep reminding myself of that. You can never have too much knitting. So secondly, for my knitting this week, I was able to put a little bit of a dent on my, apologies for the clicking needles, on my commissioned knit, which is the Onette shawl. The Onette shawl. It is a free pattern from Manos del Uruguay. So that's nice. It is a free pattern. Like I said, that's very, very convenient. I'm using Knit Picks palette in the Limeade Heather colorway, which I think is absolutely beautiful. It's showing up very nicely. There's something very special about like bright neon colors like this that are heathered and have like color dimension to them. It just makes them seem so much more dimensional, so much more rich, I guess, in my mind anyway. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know how well you can see that, but, and there's nothing wrong with neon colors that do not have extra colors in them, but I just think it looks less like blocky, I guess. I don't know. I'm finding this hard to describe now that I'm starting to talk about it on the podcast. But like if you see a neon color that's just like solid one color, there's nothing wrong with that, but it is very much like a pow. Oh my goodness, that is very, very bright and very, very like attention grabbing. It makes it more soft. That's what I'm trying to describe. I feel like it just makes this bright color seem more soft and more usable, maybe? Not that the non-multiple colored ones, not that the non-variegated bright colors are not usable, but just in my mind, it seems more versatile and just more ready to use. So I've been really enjoying knitting with this. This is also really good yarn for knitting, or yarn, it's a very good pattern for knitting. What am I saying? It's a very good pattern for reading. There we go. Because right now I'm just knitting a garter stitch triangle square thing. It's a triangle, it's not a square. I don't know why I said that, but it's a triangle. Yarn overs. I don't remember actually if the pattern called for yarn overs, but I prefer having yarn overs in shawls like this just because I think it makes them more stretchy, and it adds a little bit of laciness that you might not always have. So that was my choice, but granted that might be what the pattern says, so I might be following the pattern. I don't remember, but I'm just really enjoying this. I think it's knitting up super well. I think it's very squishy and just and yes, I'm knitting it on size 8s, I believe. So nothing fancy, nothing fancy. Just doing this triangular shape for a long time until I reach a certain point, and then I start doing some lace edging. So yeah. Like I said, this is a commission knit, so this is one of my I'm very sorry for the clicking needles. This is one of my top priorities, so yes, that is a thing. So this is definitely needing to be worked on for sure before I can cast on anything else, specifically a shawl that I've talked about in the past that I really want to make called Tiny Tassels, which is also a free pattern that just has cute little baby tassels on the edge, and it's just so cute. I want to make it so badly, but again, this takes priority. It's a good thing. I am definitely enjoying this pattern, and obviously it's a good pattern to read too, so getting a lot of reading done. So I mentioned that I have a little baby FO that I whipped up last night, which is the wonders of little teeny tiny knitting projects and the wonderfulness of instant gratification. I'm going to a friend's birthday party this weekend, which is super exciting. I have not seen her in a very long while. She was one of my bridesmaids, and so I'm very much looking forward to getting to see her again. So that's very exciting, and she works at an office and has a desk and all that jazz, and she likes to collect little cactuses, cacti, and succulents, and so I decided to make her one. And if you have been following the podcast for a really long time, if you are one of the OG subscribers, you would remember that I have made many a cactus for various people, for Christmas presents, for birthday presents. They're just very easy to make, and they make really, really great gifts because they're super quick. You usually have whatever you need to make one. The only weird thing is the clay pot that you have. But you can get these for less than 99 cents at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. So it's very easy to get these materials, and then you can make them in the evening. In an evening. How cute. So yes, I'm very excited to give this to her, and I just crocheted a single chain and made a little circle because I'm really good with my crochet terms. I did a single crochet and made it into a circle, and then somehow did something else to make it more of a flower shape. I'm sorry, that's not very descriptive. but I somehow made a flower type thing. In the past, I have used a pattern or a basic like recipe pattern template type thing for making my cactuses, cacti, whatever. But this one, because I've made so many, I just knew that I could cast on however many stitches and just increase until however big I wanted it to be and do a certain textured pattern. I did seed stitch and then decrease, stuff it with stuffing. What is that called? It's not kitchering. Grafting? I don't remember that term. That's very sad. I should remember that. Cinch it all up. Finish it off. Weave in ends. Or not really weave in ends because I just stick it into the middle of the cactus and call it a day. And then made the little flower. So this took me about 2 hours, an hour and a half, something like that. It was very, very, very easy. Thankfully I had these little pots left over from Christmas and from when I made other cactuses for more family members, and I happened to have extra, so it made things super easy. I'm very excited to give this to her at her birthday party, so fun times are ahead. The pattern that I normally use, or I have used in the past for cactuses, I will link in the show notes if you are interested in making them. I really highly recommend making them if you have a friend who is like into that kind of a thing, or if you can't think of what to give someone for Christmas or a birthday, you just make them a little cactus. Plus you can do so many different variations on them. You can make them have arms, you can do different types of yarn, you can hold multiple yarns, you can make them bigger, make them smaller, add more flowers. The options are endless and they make such good gifts because it's like handmade and it's just very cute to have it like sitting on a bookshelf or whatever, and you don't have to worry about keeping it alive because it's yarn. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. You don't have to worry about keeping a plant alive. You can make someone a handmade gift. And plus, it's one of those handmade gifts that doesn't, like, require a lot of, like, knit-worthiness. That being said, the people that I have made these for are definitely knit-worthy, so, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem making them other things. But if you have a friend that you're, like, you probably wouldn't appreciate a knit hat or, like, a scarf or whatever, you can still make them one of these. They get a handmade gift, and you don't have to worry about them, like, not appreciating it. So it's a good gift to give. Highly recommend. Little cactuses. So that's all I have for knitting this week. Hopefully next week. You never know. I know I keep saying this and I apologize. We'll see how next week's knitting goes. I make no promises. I make no goals for myself. Actually, I make one goal and that is just to knit, and that is the top priority. So, who knows what I'll have finished for you next week? Who knows? Maybe I'll cast something new on. You never know. But to go back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I have a recipe and I have a book. Let's talk about the least favorite item first, and that is a book. And granted, I'm not finished with this book yet, but I've thought about stopping this book several times, and also I'm listening to it, so I'm not actually reading it, but, and I forget who the, I'm going to look this up right now, I forget who the author is, but, so, this is called Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. Sittenfeld? Something like that. I will link it in the show notes to the Goodreads if you'd like to go and read more about it. That is super cool. I will tell you my opinion. And this is my personal preference. This is my opinion. If you have enjoyed this book, I'm glad that you really enjoyed this book. This is just definitely not my cup of tea. So it is a modern retelling of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, which I really don't know how I feel about modern retellings. I feel like it's okay if I do not have strong feelings about the original, which I do have very strong feelings for the original Pride and Prejudice. It holds a very dear place in my heart. In addition to the movie version with Colin Firth in it that is 8 hours or something like that. That is the only Pride and Prejudice in my opinion. In my opinion. So if you like the Keira Knightley version, that is wonderful. I'm glad that you enjoy it, but I am not a fan of that one as much as I am of the 8-hour one. So I don't know, just the whole modern retelling of it, I understand that this is like a new take on the story, and this is just new things that are being told using these characters. But I was just not a fan. I feel like sometimes modern retellings they will take the storyline and take the characters and their names and stuff like that and just throw a bunch of like modern culture, pop culture references in the story. And then that, just in my mind, that I don't really enjoy that as much. Unless it's like an actual modern book with a new modern story and new modern characters, that's super cool. But if I am, in my mind, when I think of Pride and Prejudice and I think of like Regency gowns and I think of people sitting in their living rooms and like doing embroidery and playing the pianoforte and all that kind of stuff, it just confuses, or it doesn't confuse me. It just kind of, I don't know, I just don't understand it, and I don't really like it when in the modern retelling it's like, oh, well, these people do CrossFit and like these people just wear workout clothes all day and they juice and they go bowling, and I don't know. Again, this is just my opinion and it's just very strange. I don't know. So I'm sticking it out. I'm gonna finish it. I have a couple hours left, I think, in the audiobook. So hopefully I'll be able to finish that today, maybe, I don't know. But there have been several times while I've been listening to it where I've been like, is this really worth me finishing? And that's not to say that it's a bad book, because I know a lot of people have really enjoyed it. It has a lot of really good reviews on Goodreads, and I'm glad that those people have really enjoyed the book. It's just not my favorite book. I would say that if you are a huge Jane Austen fan and are like a hardcore fan of just anything Jane Austen and all Regency, you might not enjoy this book. So, I'm glad I tried it, I'm glad I've experienced it, and that's super wonderful, but probably not my favorite book. But again, very glad that I've experienced it. It's been on my to-read list for goodness knows how long, and now I've read it, and I know that it wasn't my favorite, and that's super cool, because everyone is entitled to their opinion, and a book is a book. So, nothing wrong with the book, nothing wrong with the author, it's just not my favorite, not my cup of tea. But if you enjoyed it, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So, and again, this is the book Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know. But I will link it in the show notes, the Goodreads page. So if you want to go check it out and see the synopsis and all that kind of stuff and other people's reviews, you can go do that. You've heard my opinion. You could take it or leave it, but this is my opinion, so yes. That is my book rant, and my book rant is over. So now we've talked about the not so great thing, now we can talk about the good thing. I made some chocolate chip cookies this week, and granted they were not the most groundbreaking. It was nothing super special, the recipe, but it used a new technique that I have never really used before and created probably the best cookies ever, in my opinion. I will preface this and say that I am a fan of a crunchy cookie. I like the edges to be golden, I like them to be crisp, and I like them to be crunchy, crumbly. Crumbly? I don't know if I like them to be crumbly, but I like them to be just like, you can hear the crunch. I like crispy things. There's also something very satisfying about the word crispy. crispy. So moving on from words. So you make your cookies. I'm sure you could do this with any kind of recipe, chocolate chip or otherwise, cookies that you like. If you like them to be more crispy, then you use the pan banging method. And you might be like, what in the world is that? That sounds strange. What do you mean pan banging? And it's literally that. You bang your pan around with the cookies on them and it makes them fall. So let me start over. Make your cookies, no big deal. Whatever cookie recipe you would like. You stick them in the oven, you bake them for a certain amount of time, and then you bang around your cookie pan with the cookies on them and they fall. In the cooking process, they've gotten a little bit more fluffy, they're puffed up, and so when you bang around the pan, you drop it on the wire racks or whatever, they fall. Bloop. And you just let that happen. You let them bake some more, you do it again. You do that again, you let them bake some more, you do it again. You do it a couple times, and then by the time the baking is done, you bring them out of the oven and bang it around a little bit more on your counter, on your kitchen counter, on the stove, whatever, just so the cookies have fallen several times and create a very flat, crispy cookie. And oh my goodness, I just love them so much. I have nothing against like a delicious, warm, chewy cookie that is soft and fluffy. I love those too, but if I had to pick, if you were making me pick what kind of cookie I really like the best, it would be crispy. So, fun fact about me, I prefer crispy cookies over fluffy ones. And I created that, and it's very hard to find the right way to make your cookies crispy without burning them or overcooking them. And I found out that method and I did it, and they are so good and they're so crispy and I love it. So yes, I will link the recipe that I used and that had this method in the recipe in the show notes. I forget what blog it came from. Again, I am very sorry. I'm just very bad at that. But I found it on Pinterest. That is how I found this whole idea, and I wanted to try it because I knew that they would be crispy cookies. So, and they were delicious. They didn't look quite like the pictures on the blog, but that's okay. You're technically supposed to put the cookie dough in the freezer, I think, or the fridge, one of those two, for 15 minutes before you start cooking them, or baking them, excuse me. I did not have time for that, so I did not. It did not change anything. They are still wonderful. So it's not an imperative step in the process, but that, like I said, the pattern, I keep wanting to call it pattern. The recipe will be linked in the show notes. So if you want to experience and make these delicious crispy cookies, if you are on Team Crispy Cookie like I am, I highly recommend them for sure. They go incredible with milk. They go incredible with tea. It's just, you cannot go wrong with a crispy cookie. How many times can I say crispy cookie? Because it's a very nice thing to say. Crispy cookie. And now I'm just saying things to myself. So, let us move on. So yes, that is it for this episode, for this week. Hopefully next week I will have more progress to show you, especially on my popcorn bomber. It'll get done eventually. It will. So that's very exciting. I have a lot of things that I want to make, specifically wintry woolly things, which is a problem because it's just so hot here in Texas. Just so who knows when things will be knit. My mom and I have also been discussing possibly a colorworked sweater, which would be including a steek, which is very exciting. So I think we're going to wait to see how the steeking process of the of the bomber jacket goes. And maybe we want to take a break from steeking. Maybe we're just like, steek all the things. Like I said last week, steeking changes everything. As that was the title of last week's episode. So we will see how that goes. That will probably determine what we make next. But we have to finish things first. We have to get those things done, and that is very important, and it's very important, because once you finish something, you're just like, oh, I feel good about myself for finishing this item that I've been working so hard on. But sometimes it's hard to wait, and that's okay, because it's a good life experience. And now I'm just rambling. So, let's probably finish up this episode, shall we? If you would like to see the links to any of these things that I have talked about, whether it be books, cookies, steeking, knitting, whatever, all of those things will be linked in the show notes. And if you are on YouTube, it'll be linked down below to go to my blog, or if you're on my blog, everything is just down below. In addition to that, all my various social medias are linked everywhere. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Ravelry, that is super wonderful. I also have a Goodreads if you'd like to go and see what I am reading. I don't always mention everything that I'm reading on the podcast, just because I don't think it would be super interesting for everybody. But if there's something that I feel particularly passionate about, like today, I do feel like it's fun to share with the world what I think about these books. So if you would like to see what I am reading that I don't talk about, you can go and be my friend on Goodreads, and that is super cool, and then I can see what you're reading, and we can have book recommendations and all that jazz. I would love that. But of course you don't have to, you don't want to. If you would like to see pictures that I post about things that I'm up to during the week, you can go follow me on Instagram. I'm definitely most active on there, and Goodreads, but that's not as interesting as pictures. Unless you're really into books and you prefer that over pictures, so that's just totally up to you. You can follow both of them if you want. All of those things will be linked down below, and they're in the show notes, so never fear, everything will be linked. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and spending some time with me. I really, really appreciate it. And if you are a new viewer, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode. Feel free to leave a comment, like, or subscribe, because that is always important. It really helps the podcast get shared with the world and other people who are looking for video podcasts. So if you could do that, I would really, really appreciate it. I hope you have had a wonderful week, and I hope you continue to have a wonderful weekend. If you have crafty plans, I hope that they are successful. I have crafty plans in that I hope that I get to knit this weekend, and I hope I make some progress. Maybe I'll be able to cast off the body of my bomber jacket. That would be wonderful. I think I'm about halfway through with the ribbing, but I also don't know if I'm going to knit the entirety of the ribbing. I don't know. I also probably should have talked about that when I was talking about the sweater, but I didn't. Oh well. Anyway, if you have crafty plans, I hope they are successful. What are your crafty plans for this weekend? You have birthday gifts coming up? Christmas knitting, everybody. I just remembered that. I always remember that when I'm like closing out the episode. It's a thing and should be happening. Am I doing it? No. Should I? Yes. Probably should start planning that soon. I feel like August is probably the best time to start doing it. I feel like that's when I started doing it last year. But I shouldn't go off of that, because then I didn't get everything done, and clearly that did not go well for me. So maybe I should start now. I mean, tomorrow is the 1st of June, so it's getting pretty close. Christmas is right around the corner, people. Are you ready? Do you have your gifts ready to go? Because I don't. I have great admiration for those people who have like a box of gift knits that they have already made up, and they can just pull from it and just be like, oh, here you go. Here's some mittens. Here's a hat. Here's some socks that I've whipped up. I have great admiration for those people, and I am not one of those people, so maybe that's something I should work on in the future. I don't know. I don't know. These are very, very deep and irrelevant thoughts for the end of the podcast episode. I was literally about to say goodbye and then I just went on a tangent. So, bringing it back to this week's episode, thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye!